We humans, we're really obsessed with aging, aren't we? Wrinkles, gray hair. We spend so much time and energy fighting what feels, well, inevitable, this slow decline.
That deterioration, yeah. The way our bodies just seem programmed to break down over time.
But what if? What if that's not the whole story for all life? What if some organisms just don't do that, don't really age in the way we understand it?
That's exactly the question scientists are digging into. That decline you mentioned, the cellular breakdown, disease becoming more likely as you get older, that's called senescence. It's the standard biological path towards death for most complex life.
Right, senescence. But then there's this other idea, the flip side. Negligible senescence. That sounds significant.
It really is. Negligible here means that statistically speaking, the chance of dying or getting sick doesn't increase as the organism gets older.
Doesn't increase.
Correct. For some of these organisms, the risk of death stays flat throughout their whole life. And for others, incredibly, the risk might actually decrease the older they get. It's a total rebellion against that biological clock.
Okay, that's wild. But studying it must be incredibly difficult. I mean, if something lives for hundreds of years, how do you even prove it doesn't age? Like Galapagos tortoises, they live over a century.
Exactly. We know they're incredibly long-lived, but getting enough data across generations to prove negligible senescence, that takes, well, centuries of careful observation. We're still working on confirming their status.
So that's our mission today then, to sort of cut through the maybes and look at the creatures and plants too, where the evidence for this kind of agelessness is building, or maybe even proven.
Precisely. We're going hunting for the biological blueprints for extreme longevity, maybe even a kind of immortality.
Okay, where do we start? Where does time seem to slow down the most?
We need to go deep and cold. Into the Arctic and subarctic waters, that's where you find the Greenland shark.
Ah, the longest living vertebrate known. Just saying, that sounds ancient.
It truly is. These sharks can live for well over 400 years. And the leading theory for why is their adaptation to the extreme cold.
How does the cold help?
It forces them to slow everything right down. Their metabolism is incredibly slow, which in turn slows down all their life processes, growth, movement, everything. It's life lived at a glacial pace.
You give me a sense of how slow. Like, compared to a regular shark we might see closer to shore?
It's almost hard to picture. They grow maybe 1 centimeter a year, barely the width of your pinky finger.
A centimeter, wow.
And they swim at maybe 3 kilometers an hour, just drifting, really. Think about this. They don't even reach sexual maturity until they're about 100 years old.
A century just to grow up.
A full century. It's an incredible strategy. Live slow, live long. But you can see the challenge for researchers.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you study something that lives that long and moves that slowly in such a remote, difficult environment?
It's incredibly tough. Their slow, deep existence means sightings are rare. Get this, the first photo of a Greenland shark in the wild wasn't even taken until 1995.
1995.
Seriously. So proving negligible senescence definitively requires data. We're only just starting to gather systematically. We need more time, ironically.
Okay, so the shark is a prime example of the slow life strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Are there others in the ocean using different tricks? You mentioned the ocean quahog, a clam.
Right, the ocean quahog. It's a type of mollusk, a bivalve. And we know individuals can live for at least 400 years, possibly longer. Minging the clam was famously dated to 507 years old.
500 years for a clam. How?
The theory there leans towards biochemistry. It seems they have an unusually high capacity for producing antioxidants.
Ah, antioxidants. We hear about those all the time.
Exactly. They essentially fight off the cellular damage, the oxidative stress that contributes to aging in most animals. They're naturally neutralizing the decay process much more effectively than we do.
So they've cracked the code we're all trying to bottle.
In a way, yes. They have this built-in cellular protection system running at peak efficiency.
And we can tell their age accurately, like with trees.
We can, and it's similar for other long-lived fish, like the rougheye rockfish. They can live maybe 140 years. We count growth rings, like tree rings, but on tiny bones in their inner ears. They're called otoliths.
Otoliths. So you get a precise age. But the key question remains.
Does their chance of dying actually increase as they get older? Even with the otolith data confirming age, figuring out the mortality curve for something like the rockfish across its whole lifespan, that still requires a lot more study to confirm negligible senescence.
Well, okay, so we have extreme slowdown and maybe powerful chemistry in the deep sea. Let's pivot to something a bit more famous, or maybe infamous online. The American lobster.
Ah, a lobster meme, yeah.
Everyone seems to think they're immortal.
Yeah.
But you're saying, Not quite. They are the longest living arthropod, right?
They are incredibly long-lived for an arthropod, yes.
Oh, okay.
Decades, easily. But immortal, no. They definitely experience senescence. They age and die. But they do have a fascinating biological trick up their sleeve, or rather in their cells.
Which is?
It's an enzyme called telomerase. You often hear it called the immortality enzyme.
Telomerase. I know we have that too, right? In certain cells. Stem cells.
We do. And it's crucial. Telomerase rebuilds the protective caps on the ends of our DNA, the telomeres. These normally shorten each time a cell divides, which limits the cell's lifespan. Telomerase prevents that shortening.
So why aren't we using it to live longer if lobsters have it?
That's the critical difference. In humans, telomerase is active in stem cells and, unfortunately, cancer cells, but it's suppressed in most of our regular body cells. Too much activity can lead to uncontrolled growth, like cancer. But in lobsters,
And more widespread.
much more. It's highly active in many of their tissues. This allows their cells to keep dividing almost indefinitely, which lets the lobster keep growing and regenerating limbs throughout its life, far beyond what most animals can do.
Okay, so their cells don't really wear out in the same way. They can just keep growing. Why isn't that immortality? If they can keep regenerating, what stops them?
It's the very process that allows their growth that ultimately becomes their downfall. Their continuous growth relies on molting, shedding their hard exoskeleton, and growing a bigger one.
Right, they have to crawl out of their old shell.
Exactly, and that molting process takes a huge amount of energy.
Ah, I see where this is going.
As the lobster gets older and bigger, the shell gets thicker, the process gets harder, more energy-intensive, and riskier. The cycle slows down, eventually. It just costs too much energy.
Too much energy to molt.
Yes. The lobster literally dies from exhaustion trying to complete the molt. It gets stuck. This happens to maybe 10–15% of them. The rest, well, they usually end up as dinner for something else.
Wow. Killed by the cost of living, essentially. So, if the lobster represents failure due to high energy cost, what's the opposite? An organism that's mastered efficiency.
For that, we look at something much smaller, almost alien, the tiny freshwater invertebrate, Hydra vulgaris. It looks a bit like a miniature sea anemone or a tiny palm tree, only about 1 to 3 centimeters long.
And this little thing,
Yeah.
it's considered virtually immortal, at least in the lab.
Pretty much, yes. And it's all down to stem cells. The Hydra's body is composed largely of stem cells that are in a constant state of renewal.
Constant renewal.
It completely regenerates its entire body structure, tentacles, foot, everything, roughly every 20 days. It's basically hitting the reset button on a cellular level, constantly becoming biologically young again.
That's incredible. I heard it was named after the Greek myth, the Hydra serpent.
Exactly, because if you cut off pieces, they just regenerate. But even more amazing, if you take a Hydra, break its cells apart, scramble them up, and just push them back into a ball.
No way.
Yes. Those cells will actually reorganize themselves and grow into a completely new functional Hydra. They just refuse to accept disorder. It's biological persistence on an almost unbelievable level.
So in a lab, protected from harm, it just keeps going.
It seems so. In the wild, of course, things like predators, disease, or sudden environmental changes can kill them. We should also mention some very recent studies hint at a possible tiny slowdown in their asexual reproduction rate over very long periods, which might be an incredibly subtle sign of aging. But largely, they defy it.
Okay, Hydra is virtually immortal. Is there anything currently considered truly biologically immortal? No caveats.
There is one species, as far as we know right now, the amazing immortal jellyfish, Turritopsis dohrnii.
The immortal jellyfish, the name says it all. How does it work?
It possesses a unique biological superpower called transdifferentiation. If this jellyfish gets stressed, injured, or even just old, it can basically reverse its own life cycle. It transforms its adult cells back into younger cell types, reverting to an earlier stage, the polyp stage, like a tiny anemone stuck to the seafloor.
So it literally Benjamin Buttons itself.
Pretty much. It goes back to being a juvenile polyp, and then it can bud off and grow into an adult medusa again. And it seems it can do this cycle over and over, indefinitely. It's the only known animal that can truly reverse its aging process when facing adversity.
That's just mind-bending. But maybe all this frantic regeneration and reversal in animals is one path and there's another. What about plants? They seem so stable, so enduring.
Absolutely. We can shift focus way up to the trees. Consider the Great Basin bristlecone pine. These trees live in harsh, high-altitude environments.
And they are ancient, right.
The oldest known living individuals are over 5,000 years old, 5 millennia. And importantly, they show no signs of reduced vigor or increased mortality with age. They just keep going.
5,000 years. And is there cellular evidence for this kind of agelessness in trees?
There is, particularly from studies on another long-lived species, the ginkgo biloba tree. They also live for thousands of years.
The ginkgo. What did the studies show?
Well, researchers did a really careful comparison. They looked at ginkgo trees that were only 20 years old and compared them to trees that were 600 years old. They measured everything, how well their seeds germinated, how efficient their photosynthesis was, the resistance to disease.
And the results for the 600-year-old tree?
No decline. None. The efficiency, the gene activity related to defense and growth. It was all basically the same as in the young 20-year-old trees. They couldn't find any biological evidence of programmed death or senescence.
So unless something external kills them, a storm, a fire, disease, they could theoretically just keep living.
That's what the evidence suggests. Their cellular machinery seems built for the very, very long haul, focused on maintenance and resilience rather than a limited lifespan.
That brings us to maybe the ultimate strategy for longevity, not relying on just one individual body. Let's talk about the quaking aspen, Pando.
Pando, the trembling giant. This is clonal colony immortality. It's a different game entirely.
Explain that. What's a clonal colony?
You see a whole forest of aspen trees, but underground, they're all connected. They are genetically identical stems growing from one single massive root system. It's technically one enormous organism.
One organism. So all those trees are like branches?
Essentially, yes. An individual trunk or tree might only live for, say, 150 years, but the root system, the colony itself, can persist for thousands upon thousands of years.
How old are we talking?
The Pando colony in Utah, estimates put it at possibly 80,000 years old, maybe even older. It's one of the oldest known living organisms on Earth.
80,000 years. So losing one tree doesn't matter much.
Exactly. It's like you clipping a toenail, as the saying goes. The main organism, the root system, survives underground, and it's incredibly resilient. Those roots can lie dormant for a century or more, just waiting for conditions like sunlight to improve after maybe a fire clears the canopy, and then whoosh, new trunks sprout up.
That's amazing persistence. Do they have other tricks?
They do. Even their bark helps. A thin layer of the bark can actually photosynthesize. This allows them to keep generating some energy even during winter when other deciduous trees have lost their leaves and gone completely dormant, masters of survival.
Okay, so we have all these incredible strategies. But before we wrap up, you mentioned definitions matter. Let's touch on that complexity again. Freshwater pearl mussels.
Right. This is a good example of why classifying negligible senescence can be tricky. These mussels live a long time, over a century. They keep growing throughout their lives, and they reproduce even when very old, seemingly just as well as when they were young.
Sounds like a perfect candidate. So what's the catch?
The catch is in the statistics. Despite their longevity and continued function, careful studies show that their probability of dying does actually increase, even if only slightly, as they get older.
So they don't meet that strict definition of a stable or decreasing mortality risk.
Exactly. They fail that key statistical test. So while they are incredibly long-lived and resist many signs of aging, they highlight that negligible senescence might not capture every nuance. The clock hasn't stopped for them. It's just slowed way, way down.
Okay, that makes sense. So looking back at everything, we see these different paths to longevity. There's the extreme slowdown like the Greenland shark.
Life in the slow lane.
Then the constant regeneration powered by stem cells like the Hydra.
The perpetual rebuild.
The amazing biological reversal of the immortal jellyfish hitting reset.
The ultimate escape hatch.
And the clonal persistence of the aspen, strength in numbers and roots.
Spreading the risk across millennia.
What really connects them all when you think about it?
It seems to be about minimizing the biological cost of complexity. They either drastically reduce their energy expenditure, like the shark, or they invest incredibly heavily in perfect cellular repair, regeneration, or resource sharing, like the Hydra and the aspen.
And when you look at things like telomerase or antioxidants in the quahog,
those are exactly the kinds of mechanisms we humans are trying to understand and, frankly, harness. The whole anti-aging industry is, in a way, trying to bottle the secrets these organisms evolved naturally to fight decay, trying to steal that evolutionary fire.
It's fascinating, the sheer variety of ways life finds to push back against time. But it leaves you with the big question, doesn't it? If evolution has found these ways to cheat death from exhaustion like the lobster, or reverse injury like the jellyfish, what is it about being, a complex, mobile animal like us that keeps that clock ticking forward so relentlessly?
Is there some fundamental trade-off? Does consciousness, rapid movement, complex thought, does all that just come with an unavoidable biological price tag? Is perfect maintenance or indefinite growth simply too energetically expensive to sustain alongside everything else that makes us, well, us?
Something to definitely think about, considering the energy drain of our own complicated lives. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the potentially ageless.